So it's midnight story hour once again. And so tonight I decided to tell y'all the story of why I quit teaching to become a full-time reseller. To accurately tell why it is that I quit teaching, you might want to know why I started teaching. And honestly, it's something that just kind of fell into my lap. I was working for a company called Comcast. Some of you might know who they are. And I realized I did not like it. It's a lot of heat. It's a lot of climbing under houses. And for someone who's arachnophobic, that's a terrible idea. So I was looking for a way out, but I was kind of stuck in the situation because I wasn't quite done going through the training, and the job just kind of fell in my lap. They offered me a job here in small town Hattiesburg, Mississippi, for the Tide School, the Institute for Diverse Education. And it's a school for kids for like dyslexia, autism, ADHD, and anxiety. I should say it was because it's no longer in existence, been bought out, names changed, sort of whatever. I got the job and I started teaching for them. And let me be clear here, I did not know what I was doing. I'd get an alternate route to teach because I had a bachelor's degree in English and history, but that did not mean I knew anything about teaching. And if you don't know what an alternate route is, it's like a small version of teaching classes to get you ready for teaching, but it does not really prepare you for it. And so I was kind of thrown into the fire. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't get a lot of help to start out with, so I was kind of winging it. So what I was doing was looking up on the internet, trying to find out things to teach, and just kind of randomly teaching things because I didn't know anything about standards or Common Core, none of it. So what I would do was I was just kind of randomly teaching things I need to teach. I was supposed to be teaching English. I know certain grammar things I need to teach, so I just picked the grammar and rule of the day and went with it. It wasn't until halfway through the school year when someone finally approached me and said, "You're doing things wrong." So I decided it was finally time to, I don't know, follow somebody else's advice and fix it. So they helped me out. Actually, they gave me a lot of assistance, and they helped me in class and helped me understand what I needed to be teaching. So the second half of the year was much better, and the kids actually got an education, worthy of writing home to, because the first half of the year sucked. Of course, if any of you have ever taught, the first year teaching is awful anyway. So for me, it's pretty bad. Well, after my first year, I should go back and go ahead and tell you how this first year went because it's kind of key. So the Institute for Diverse Education, the problem with it was a very small school. It was a private school, and they didn't have a lot of teachers. So I was teaching English to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. That is, of course, that means that I'm making preparations and lesson plans for each individual student, each individual class. So there's a lot of different prep and a lot of things I had to do, and there were no textbooks to follow. It was all on my own. It was pretty difficult, and it was a lot of work, and I lost a lot of sleep. It was very stressful. I actually had lots of issues with health issues early on because of that, and so I was stressing out. Now, this is from someone, probably if you watched my first video or other videos, you would know that I am a military veteran. I served in the Army 8 years, twice in Iraq, once in Afghanistan. And anybody who's ever served in the Army, you know dang well that that's one thing they teach you to do is stress management. For someone who did have lots of history and experience with stress management, it was still very difficult to make it through that year. Well, the grass is always greener, so the second year I decided to stay there at the Tide School. So I decided to teach history instead of English. Of course, that's my genius self, because I decided all the lesson plans that I had managed to get together for my first year would not be useful. So I had to go to a whole new subject to make it even more difficult for myself. So the second year I was teaching history to 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, and 12th graders. And yes, that's different preparations and lesson plans for each of those classes that I had prepared every week. And it was all on my own. There's no assistance, and once again, no textbooks. I actually managed to find some textbooks from like library sales and stuff like that, and bought some stuff on eBay and teachers editions. Yes, I funded it all myself, and they were very out-of-date books, and they probably shouldn't have been used, but I did what I could. And so I was teaching history my second year, and it was stressful once again because of a lot of preps and a lot of lesson planning to get through. And I was stressing out because I was teaching kids with those kinds of conditions, and I wasn't prepared or had any education or history about it. Knew what I was doing, but I loved the kids. They were amazing. And so I actually really did want to stay at that job. But the problem was, the school that I was getting my alternate route from, to actually finish the degree off, I had to go to a public school to teach for one class for one semester. But unfortunately, they don't just let you show up at a public school and teach for one class for one semester. So my third year teaching, I had to go to a public school. I will leave that school unnamed because honestly, it's not that it was a terrible school or the kids were bad. It was just a totally different environment and a different culture. Well, all that added up to be something that was pretty difficult for me to handle. I was teaching English to 8th graders, and if anyone's ever taught, 8th graders is absolutely the worst grade to teach. The kids are in the middle of wanting to be kids but treated like adults, and they're all going through puberty, and it's awful. First 9 weeks and second 9 weeks were the worst, and the second half of the year was a lot better because I got more of a relationship with students and knew how to handle them a lot better. I was going home so tired and stressed out. I was having a lot of issues with my stomach, with sleep. I ended up in the hospital thinking I was having a heart attack. And it's not because the kids were difficult, because I was having stress problems from the first school and they were not difficult. It was honestly just the fact that as a person, I always felt like I was never achieving what I needed to. I always felt like I was letting the students down, like I wasn't doing enough. Even though I would stay up late lesson planning and doing everything I could, it just felt like I was failing them because I just never felt adequate at the job. Now, that is not to say I did not reach some students. I've had several students come to me and tell me, they loved me and that I was their favorite teacher, the best teacher, but honestly, it did not matter. I felt inadequate and I felt a failure. And that's not something I wanted to do. So, what I decided to do in the middle of, after I signed my contract, by the way, for supposed to come back to that school for my 4th year teaching, I was 1 week into the summer vacation. And I was playing a game called the World of Warcraft. Yeah, I'm one of those nerds. I play all kinds of games and loves all kinds of nerdy things. So I was playing the World of Warcraft, which I come back to every now and then. And I was actually playing the auction house. And so I would buy things from one auction house from one realm, mail it to another character, and sell it on a different realm. And I just kept doing that. And I was making a bunch of gold. And I was like, man, this is so much fun. It's so easy. I wonder if you can do this in real life. So I decided to get on the internet and start searching up ways to do that. And I run across some videos, and I started watching them. Now, some of you may know who they are. It's the Side Hustle Network. I started watching his videos. I learned a lot from him, and I expanded from there. Started watching all kinds of people's videos, Rally Roots, Harry Tornado, just a bunch of them. And so I just decided, you know what? I think I could do this. And I had a month and a half before I had to go back to school. And so I set a goal for myself at a month and a half to try to turn what was from nothing to a full-time job. And, so it was a lot of pressure, and it was probably next to impossible to pull off in the first place. But that was a goal that I was going to go after. So I started selling things around the house, and I was doing really well. I had $1,000 first month on eBay. It was mostly profit because I wasn't buying a lot. And so I started to go out from there and go to some garage sales, because down here in the South, garage sales are always a big thing. There's only a little bit of time of year where it's not, where our 3 weeks of winter, because Mississippi is weird. And of course, our 3 weeks of winter is never in line. It's not just 3 solid weeks. It's a week here, 2 days here, 3 days there. So I started going to garage sales and buying things and selling them for profit. And then I expanded there, and I started going to thrift stores, and we have several in town. And then I even started driving all the way down to the coast and hitting a bunch down there. And it's usually running about 200 miles. And I was doing pretty well. I had a $2,000 second month on eBay and then a $3,000 third month on eBay. So I was doing really well, and I was excited, and I was, felt like I was just the man walking around. And then the sales started to drop. I went down to roughly 2,000, which is where I've been. I've been averaging right around 2,000. I did have a month that dropped down to about 15. That wasn't fun. I'm still trying to recover from that. And my sales are starting to build back up, because I think mainly it was just that I started to fail, and I let it get to me and started hitting my confidence, and I wasn't putting forth as much effort. And so now my goal, and if you've watched the first video, I'm in another crunch where I have another month and I have to build this eBay business. So that's why I quit. I quit because of stress. And I quit because I had a lot of health issues. I loved teaching 45.9% of the time. I love the kids. I loved the relationships that I got to develop. I loved the other teachers. Honestly, my administration was always good no matter which school I was at. But I just, I always felt inadequate at teaching, and I always felt like I was failing them, and I just hated that. I'm the type of person that every job I've ever done, given enough time in it, I'm going to at least be okay. Normally, I'm usually pretty good at the job because it just, I'm not an idiot. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure things out. Well, teaching's a different story. It is a job that you do not feel good at or adequate at for at least 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, and even then, sometimes you still don't. I talked to a lot of teachers who are a lot more experienced than me, and they were all telling me that if it meant that I was worried so much about it, it meant that I was a good teacher, because if I didn't, I wouldn't care. Well, I did care, but it was just health issues. I couldn't keep doing it. I had to walk away, and I had to find something. And so, yeah, I fell into reselling. I found that I loved it. I don't want to quit. And so I'm now on the road to try to save my eBay business and try to save my reselling career, because I don't want to go back to working for someone else. I love this. I love being home with my kids. And so, yeah, that was the story. Maybe it was entertaining. And I'm going to end this midnight story hour by showing off my awesome thrifted shirt that I love wearing, because this, yep, let's go ahead. The Daredevil. Yes, wonderful. Thrifted. $1. Love it. All right, guys. Good night.